The Supreme Court filing on student loans. This is the same week that Fed Governor Christopher Waller had said that pay increases across the economy should slow because there's too much money, essentially, in the economy. Are there concerns from the administration about the inflationary effects of student loan debt forgiveness?
So look, I want to be careful. Again, the Federal Reserve is an independent body, and so I'm not going to comment on the actions by the Fed or remarks from Fed officials as well. So again, they're independent, and we respect the independence of the Federal Reserve. So I will say this, that the president's top priority is tackling, especially when it comes to the economy, is tackling inflation and lowering prices for the American families. That's why he's taken the actions that he has on gas prices. That's why he's taken, that's why Democrats and the president took the actions that you saw and signed into law. The president signed into law the Inflation Reduction Act. So as the president said today, this week's data shows sign of progress in lowering inflation without giving up any of the economic gains that we have seen the past 20 months. But again, when it comes to this particular federal official that you're asking about, I'm not going to comment. But again, I just laid out more broadly where we see the economic situation.
Specifically on the loans, has the administration analyzed any potential inflationary effects of student loan forgiveness?
Again, by making those comments is kind of connected to what the federal officials.
Okay, full-blown stop.
Okay.
Nothing to do with the Fed.
Well, that's the way you asked the question, so that's the way I was answering the
Has
question.
the administration analyzed any potential inflationary effects of student loan forgiveness, the plan that the administration has enacted?
It's a good question that you're asking, but look, the president has always. I don't have any data to share with you on that particular question, but the president has been very clear. He wants to make sure that he's lowering cost for the American people. He feels that the student debt relief, especially as we were talking about lifting the pause at the end of this year, he wanted to make sure that he was giving those families, those American middle-class families, a little bit of a breathing room, especially as they're dealing with cost. And so it was a campaign promise that he had made and that he wanted to keep. But more importantly, he knows that this is going to help tens of millions of Americans across the country, up to 40 million people. And again, this is going to give an opportunity to an American family, a middle-class family across the country, to start a family, to buy a house, and that matters. When you see a number of 26 million people who went to the website to sign up, that tells you how important this plan is.
And finally, does the former president's announcement this week have any bearing on the current president's calculation in his decision as to whether he's going to run again?
So again, Hatch Act, going to be very careful. You're asking me about an election that's coming up in 2024. The president has been very clear that he intends to run, and so I'm going to leave it there.
First of all, on the appointment of the special counsel today, former President Trump reacted to this news in an interview, calling this the, quote, worst politicization of justice. He said that this was an unfair and political decision. I'm wondering if you have a response to that.
But look, I will say this, and I've said this many times before, we do not politicize the Department of Justice. That is something that the president said during the campaign. That is something that the president said in his early days of being in the White House, and that continues to be true. We were not involved in this particular issue. We are not involved in, let me just say that more broadly, we're not involved in criminal investigations that are done independently by the Department of Justice. We were not given advance notice. Again, I would refer you to Department of Justice on any questions on this. But this is not an administration that the president has been very clear that will politicize the Department of Justice.
The top Republican on the House Oversight Committee, Congressman Comer, has said that he's investigating the president's involvement in his son Hunter's foreign business dealings. Looking for your reaction to that, and then on the merits of the allegations, can you address whether the president was involved in any of his son Hunter or his brother's foreign business dealings?
So look, there's a little bit of interesting, kind of on-brand thinking here, because congressional Republicans ran saying that they were going to fight inflation. They said they were going to make that a priority. They were very clear about that these past several months. And instead, what they're doing is they're focusing, they're making their top priority. They get the majority, and their top priority is actually not focusing on the American families, but focusing on the president's family. They're not coming up with solutions on how we're going to lower costs for American families. They're not coming up with solutions on how we dealing with issues that matter the most to American families. Look, the midterm elections were very clear. They were very clear where Americans said they wanted us to deal with real issues. They wanted us to deal with what we were seeing with democracy. They wanted us to deal with how we going to fight for freedoms and for rights of the American people. And so that's not the first thing, that the top priority that they lay out is an investigation on the president's family. Look, my colleagues in the White House counsel's office are handling these of investigation by the House Republicans. So when it comes to specific allegations, I would refer you to them. I'm not going to get into specifics of what that might look like or anything else that's related to this.
On camera as it relates to the merits of any of these allegations, because
I've been
we
very
can speak
clear.
to them, but not on camera.
I've been very clear. It's like, Republicans said that they were going to, during the midterms, they were going to fight inflation, right? They said that they were going to deliver for the American people, that they were going to actually do things that give relief to the Americans. And what they're doing instead, their top priority when they get majority, is to talk about investigating the president's family, instead of doing what they said that they would do, is giving support to American families. That is what we're seeing. But again, it's pretty much on brand.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me just say, I just left an occasion where we started off by saying Slava Ukraini. So much of what we talked about last night was about the Ukraine. So much of what we have been addressing has been about Ukraine. And I'm so pleased that the president will be announcing soon, it's in the public domain already, so I don't preempt him, the lifting of most favored nation status, now known as normal trade relations with Russia, joining with our allies in doing so. Very proud that in a very strong bipartisan way, we took action in the House this week to lift the purchase of Russian oil and have the Magnitsky bill legislation part of that, renewing that law. And then today we'll go further. I want to commend the president for his extraordinary leadership. I just say this, when I was in school, and some of you have heard me say this, I was at the Kennedy inauguration. And he said, everybody knows, as citizens of America, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The very next sentence that he said is what hit me hard, and I'll never forget it. It was, to the citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. Joe Biden is exemplifying that, working together for the freedom of mankind. We look forward to seeing him today. And when we do, we will congratulate him on his leadership in passing the American Rescue Package. This is something that was not only help people survive from COVID, not only help try to have them reach their success, was transformational in how they do so. And we want to continue that work in certain aspects of BBB, or child tax credit, universal pre-K, the list goes on, affordable child care. Our champion in the Congress, Catherine Clark, nobody has done more than she has in the Congress on that subject. Home health care, saving our planet, the list goes on. We're very proud of our president, of what we did in these 2 days, and I thank Chairman Jeffries and Vice Chair Aguilar and Catherine, who was very much a part of this, for the magnificent intellectual resources they brought together here on subjects that relate to jobs, women in the workplace, saving our planet. The list goes on and on. Very successful as we hone our message so that we can win the election.
You got to understand what is playing out here. What is playing out is the powerful are afraid. They are terrified of you. They look out at the men and women in this room and you scare the living crap out of them. They are afraid of truth. They are afraid of liberty. That fear is driving them. Let me suggest a principle, a very simple principle for conservatives to understand. Big is bad. Across the board, big government sucks. Big business sucks. Big tech, big Hollywood, big universities. Any accumulation of power that is centralized is fundamentally dangerous for individual liberty. What is it that the communists want? The communists want control of everything. They want centralized power. How do we ensure freedom? You know, the principles I'm talking about were said far more eloquently, far more elegantly 2 centuries ago by James Madison in Federalist 10. James Madison talked about factions. That was an old word for special interests. And he said factions, if they're able to seize control of government, will strip away our liberty. And the genius of our Constitution is the checks and balances that divides government, that makes one branch fight with another branch, makes the executive and Congress fight, makes Congress and the judiciary fight, makes the federal government and the states fight. And what the framers, their genius was, the Supreme Court has called it splitting the atom of sovereignty. And that if one faction can't seize control of everything, then they can't use that power against the people. That principle was true 2 centuries ago. It's true today. Why is our liberty so under assault? Because giant corporations, giant tech, giant government, they work together hand in hand. You look at what happened with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, Jen Psaki. Oh, come on, Jen Psaki doesn't get the Justin Trudeau treatment? All right. You know, Peppermint Patty deserves some love. Jen Psaki from the White House podium said, billionaires in Silicon Valley, please silence that pesky Rogan guy. There's a pattern of government asking big tech to silence dissent. In Canada, the Canadian truckers, Canadian government says, GoFundMe, billionaires, please silence these pesky truckers. By the way, the workers of the world had a revolt, and the left is pissed. So what's the answer? The answer is threefold. Number one, fight power. Fight big government, fight big business, fight big tech, fight big Hollywood, fight big universities. Fight the centralization of power. Break it up. Break big tech up into a million little pieces. Decentralize. You know, we just had Wayne LaPierre talking about guns. Why is it the left, when they seize control, they immediately want to take away everyone's guns? Because then the state has a monopoly on force. If the only people with guns are the jackbooted thugs, then liberty is gone. So we need to decentralize. We need to break it apart. It's one of the reasons why I am so bullish on crypto, on Bitcoin, because it is decentralized and not